Hello and welcome to our first stitch study session. In this series of tutorials we're going to be looking at a pile of different stitches and how to crochet them. In each tutorial I'll show you how the stitch works, I'll show you some common errors people make with the stitches, and then I'll also show you how to do a turning chain so you can continue on with your next row. Let's look at our first stitch, which is a single crochet if you're using US terminology, or a double crochet if you use the UK terminology. It is the exact same stitch, just two different countries call it by two different names. I've begun halfway through the row just so I can show you how to do the turning chain at the end. If you are a beginner, please look at my beginner's guide to foundation chains so you can see how to start your work. In this sample I've got 20 chains across, just to give you an idea of the size. Let's look at the single crochet. To begin, I'm going to work into my next stitch. My next stitch is here. I can tell because it has a ring and it's got a gap there, which is what I want to put my hook straight through. And if I look on top of my hook, I now have a V. Two strands on top of the hook, which tells me I've gone into the right place in the stitch. I put my yarn over the hook and I bring that back through my work. I now have two loops on my crochet hook. I put the yarn over the hook again and I bring that yarn through both loops. I've just created a stitch. I'm going to work into the next stitch now, which is this next space. My hook goes through the stitch. I've got the V on top, which is the top of the stitch, so I know I'm in the right place. Yarn goes over the hook and I bring that yarn back through my work. I now have two loops on my hook. Yarn goes over the hook again and I bring that yarn through both loops. Hook goes into my work, into the next stitch. I can see I've got the V on top. My yarn goes over the hook and I bring that back through my work. I now have two loops on my hook. Yarn over again, bring that yarn through both stitches. Again, my hook goes through my work and I have a V on top, so I know I'm in the right place. Yarn over the hook, bring that through my work. Yarn over the hook again and bring that through both loops. Here's some things you need to watch when you are crocheting. Firstly, make sure you're always putting the yarn over the same way. Generally we go over the hook. Some people will go under the hook and around, and that's especially useful for if you're doing toys, but for standard crocheting, yarn over the hook works just as well. Whatever you choose to do, make sure you are consistent and you do it with all of your stitches. Yarn into our stitch, yarn over the hook, bring that back through, yarn over the hook again and bring that through both loops on the hook. Now I can tell I have just one stitch left, one V here, that I need to work into. I'm going to put my hook through that last stitch, yarn over the hook, bring that through, yarn over the hook again, bring that through both stitches, and I have finished my row. What I need to do now to keep my work straight and prepare for my next row is a turning chain. Turning chain differs depending on what stitch you are doing. We're doing the single crochet here, or double crochet if you prefer UK terminology, which means we do one chain. So I'm going to do one chain and then I can turn my work. Again, be consistent with the way you turn your work. I always turn it this way. If you prefer, you can turn it behind. Just make sure that every time you turn your work, you're turning it the same way. Now if I look on top, I can see this is the last stitch that I created and this is my turning chain. I do not work into the turning chain, I've got to work into the last stitch I made. So back to my work. That's this stitch here, not the chain, this stitch here. So I'm going to put my hook through the stitch, yarn over, bring that back through my work, yarn over again and bring that back through both loops. And the reason we do a turning chain is so that our yarn and our hook is at the right height to work the next row. Hook goes through that next stitch, yarn over the top, bring that through, yarn over the top again and bring that through both stitches. And you can see now I have done 1, 2 stitches in my next row, and that's how you count your work, by looking for the top of the stitches, which makes a V. Okay, my hook goes through my work, yarn goes over the hook, I bring that back through my work, yarn over the hook again and bring that through both stitches. Hook goes into the next stitch, yarn over the hook, bring that back through, yarn over again and bring that hook back through both loops. One thing I should mention is I turn my hook just slightly so I know it's going to catch the yarn and bring that through my loops. I'm going to show you this stitch 2 more times. My hook goes into my work, yarn over, bring that back through my work, yarn over again, bring that through both stitches. One thing else that I did want to mention is another way that people make mistakes, and that is if you only go through the top loop. That's called the top loop of the stitch, or the front loop. And you can see I did not collect the second part of the stitch, just gone through the front loop. This in itself is a stitch which is different to the single crochet. You can single crochet front loop only, and I'll show you what that looks like. It's best if I do two. I'm going to do another stitch the correct way, and then if I turn my work over, you can see that now I have a line here. This is created by doing front loop only. You can see that line does not exist on any other stitch, just this one here. Front loop only, which is quite effective, and you will use this during some patterns, but it's not a simple single crochet. So I'm going to undo those stitches that I did incorrectly and redo them again. Hook goes through the stitch, make sure there's 2 pieces of yarn on top, yarn goes over, bring that back through, yarn over again, bring that through both loops. One more time, crochet hook goes through both loops, yarn goes over, bring that back, yarn over again, bring that back through both loops. And that's how you do the single crochet in US terms, or the double crochet in UK terms. What you can do now, if you've looked at my tutorial for how to do a foundation row, you can now repeat this stitch and create a project. You might like to continue on working and create a scarf, or make this a square, use cotton, and you have a face washer. Hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. I look forward to seeing you in my other stitch studies.